Welcome to In Your Element, the podcast that unlocks practical wisdom in higher education, where leadership meets real talk. I'm Brendan Hinkle, Manager of Solutions Engineering here at Element 451.
And I'm Daniela Norden, Element 451's Director of Customer Success and Engagement. Join us every other Thursday for discussions with everyday heroes using Element 451 in enrollment, marketing, and student success. We'll unlock the practical tips to help you make waves on your campus.
In Your Element is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
We are so happy to be back on In Your Element, and boy, do we have a treat for you today. We have the Chief Marketing Officer from Texas State Technical College, Michael Bettersworth, here with you. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. It seems like you've been in a sea of element, right? You were just at ASU GSV, hanging out with our team there. How did that go, and how are you doing?
Man, it was great. It's good to see you. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, we saw a lot of Element at ASU GSV, great booth, good presentation, good mix of the technology and everybody's AI wrapper products around there. Not a lot on the recruiting side, not so much higher education side, as tends to be the case, more K through 12 oriented. But I got to meet artists face to face and your CTO and CMO and some others and share some of our early successes and impressions with the tool. It was really great. ASU GSV is such a blast. It's a busy conference, and it's amazing how many of the same people you see. You walk around the halls and see some familiar faces, and it was a good time.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, again, thanks for joining us. I am so excited for the conversation that we're going to have today. I think that the way that the conversations that we've already had, Michael, and kind of how you approach the technology that you're using, business processes, analysis, data are all huge best practices and tips for other schools. And because a lot of things I see you doing are things that other schools should be, but aren't. So we kind of started off our conversation, and whenever we were talking a few weeks ago, talking about how you made your decision on choosing Element and the business process part that went into it, the review that went into it, kind of what you all were looking at, comparing it to other platforms and what you were able to get versus value. So tell us a little bit about that. Kind of go down that road with us.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what triggered it is we're just switching ERP systems, student information systems, from to Workday Student. And we're one of a handful of institutions that went live with Workday Student just last month, where we have a few hundred students registered, more than 2,000 classes have been scheduled for our fall 24 semester. So we're off and running on Workday Student. And the application experience, though, for both our prior Salesforce implementation and our Workday Student out-of-the-box application had some usability concerns that when we were testing, we really felt there was an imperative for us to find, frankly, a more usable application experience. Part of that relates, I think, to the mission of our college, which is job placement. We're very open in our enrollment. We're not a community college, but we're not a selective 4-year. We're somewhat in between, where we really want career intentionality in the applicant. If they're not certain what occupation or career they're looking for, then we want to be careful about before they enroll in a nursing program and don't have enough knowledge of the challenges of nursing, or they want to be a wind turbine technician and maybe they're not fond of heights, or they want to be a line worker and they might have a DUI or something, which is going to be a problem when you go to get the commercial driver's license. So our admissions process is very consultative on that career connection point, but we want the user experience on the application to be light and simple, and making people do password dances and making people do long form complex questions. Are you full or part-time? You're a first generation college student and what does that mean? So we needed more flexibility in crafting our application experience to meet our myriad types of prospects where they are. And that really precipitated an all hands on deck review of what are other options to consider.
I just have to chime in here. I wish every partner explored and implemented and thought about this in this way, because what often gets overlooked or what happens organically is this process change and this cultural change. I don't think that partners and departments and offices anticipate how much process is going to change when you're bringing on a CRM, and how much work that is, but also the opportunity that comes with that, right, Michael? Can you talk a little bit about, change management is really what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, the only thing that's more challenging than a CRM implementation is an ERP, and we were already doing an ERP, and now we're going to take on doing a CRM at the exact same time. This was not, a choice we wanted to make, but again, we had an imperative to do that to drive growth. So one of the things that we did is we knew that the CRM was going to go across the whole organization, but we knew there were a lot of different stakeholder groups. So we started with a very detailed discovery document that I drafted, most of it myself. We're not reinventing the wheel when we talk about, some of these things, CRM implementations. So keep it simple, stupid is the rule. We want to really kind of get the MVP features. And so we went through a process. We used some LLMs, some GPTs to say, what are some of the most common use cases for given stakeholder group? What are the stakeholders we should be considering? And we drafted up that document, and then we shipped it around internally for feedback. And one of the things, once we had our stakeholder group kind of identified, then we created draft use case studies, and we categorized them for all the stakeholder groups into must have, should have, could have, won't have. So that was the scoping process right from the beginning, highly collaborative. We didn't have meetings. There was no committee. What we did is we started with good writing. So we started with a document. What is our goal? What are the strategic imperatives? Why are we doing this? And then for each stakeholder group, it was, what are the things that they need to accomplish in the context of this? So we wrote all of that, and we provided full editorial control to let the team dive into it. And then hundreds of use cases that were then categorized by that department, or function, let's say. Mm-hmm. And then this must have, could have, should have, would have, which is the Moscow method of categorization. We knew that we were not going to find a vendor that had everything. We knew we were going to have to make some sacrifices along the way. What you don't want to have happen is politics get in there, where if one person doesn't get feature 3.26A, the whole deal's scattered. No. What we need to do is consider the whole. And cost comes into play, deployment plan comes into play, cost of ownership comes into play. So we're really trying to then, we did a grid, and Element was fantastic. We provided a list of all those use cases in a spreadsheet. And Element went through and very honestly said, here's what we currently do today, here's what's on our roadmap, and here's what we're never going to do in the current plan. It was quick, it was easy, it was transparent. Getting other vendors to do that was very difficult. And it really said a lot about the integrity of the process, to be frank, because saying that we are not going to support a quote, unquote, must-have feature for that or business or use case, that's what we want to hear, because now we can triage that. Was it really critical? Maybe there's an alternative way that we could do it. Does it have to be in the CRM? So that was, that was the key to our process, was starting with the whys, highly collaborative, not meeting and committee driven, but clarity around the business cases, and then clarity around their prioritization, and then transparent, open sacrifices. What are we going to have? What are we not going to have? So that was basically the process. We did it pretty quickly. It was a matter of weeks, I think, for scoping most of that. Not a single meeting. And
is this higher ed? Do you work at a college? Because
I was going to say
most of TSTC is people from private industry, including most of our faculty. So there's a real appreciation for efficiency and transparency. The concepts of shared governance, which is committee driven, where innovation goes to die, are really antithetical to a lot of our culture.
That must be why you're such a good partner. I'm just going to say it.
One
of our better partners. Yes.
we when we hire people that come from traditional higher education, we have to warn them, hey, don't bring your don't forget why you moved here. I live in Austin, Texas, and we have this saying, don't CA my TX. Don't California my Texas.
God,
Don't forget why you moved here. And
yes.
that's an important part of our culture when we're onboarding is don't. The other thing is the speed that we operate in. We merged 4 separately accredited colleges into one in about 10 weeks, right? I mean, we moved pretty quick. And sometimes we might make a mistake. So we're comfortable with risk. We're not comfortable with too much risk on enrollment, though. And so
Right.
these kinds of ERP implementations and CRM things are pretty dramatic. This one has gone well so far, and the growth is the numbers are supporting the growth. We can talk more about that in a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one thing to add here really quickly is, you were speaking, Michael, one time when we were having a conversation about the culture and almost the soul of whatever platform you choose.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just such an incredible point that I'd never heard verbalized in such a way, because you can look at the tangible things. Like you said, you can make your chart, you can say it does this, it doesn't do this. Let's look at the business process. But at the end of the day, you also looked at a different layer that I think some people don't look at. And I think that that's a really important piece too.
Yeah, well, when you're using a SaaS product, right, it's designed for the market. You're going to want the total attainable market that you can get for that product. You're not going to want the whole difference between ERP, bespoke, and SaaS, and the scale that you get for that and the profitability with it. And the cost savings to the customer means that it's going to be designed for a particular kind of market. Well, if your CRM is designed for sales as its main function and revenue generation as its main function, well, that's the soul of that product. It's in its terminology. It's in its workflows. It's in its reports. Well, that is not, while we're about growth, we're about enrollment, we're less about transactions in higher education. We should be. We're more about relationships. And that relationship with a prospect is sacred. And it is not sell, let me hand you off to up the funnel. It's consultative. It's a fiduciary. And so if the CRM product has a soul in it, for lack of a better term, but a spirit that is sales focused, that ekes out in terminology and user interfaces and workflows. And that's where we were with our prior CRM. It was very sales driven. What I like about Element, it's designed for the higher education customer, which means you're going to sacrifice some verticals. But what it does is it brings what is the intent right from the head of product, right from the user interface designs and the workflows. And so the soul or spirit, if you will, of the product is more aligned with our culture and our values. And that's really important when we're talking about as big and as important a decision as where someone's going to invest their time, their money, and their hopes in higher education.
I just feel like I have nothing to add. That was amazing. And the podcast here. Mic drop. Podcast.
It's a nice short episode. Hope you all enjoyed that nugget. You'll be chewing on that one for like months. Honestly, I had the same reaction whenever we were first having this conversation, and I was just like, man, if that's you get it, right? You get it, and to have you as part of the helm leading the initiative there, like. There's so much confidence that I can say that I have in TSTC and what the future is for you all, because leadership, you have a team that's on board with that mindset along with yourself that kind of can move forward in the future with that mindset. And that's going to do nothing but yield a considerable amount of fruit in the way that you all move forward and build.
This is our culture. And it is, the mantra, place more Texans in high paying jobs and well paying jobs. It's pervasive. And then we have 3 strategic imperatives that are pretty consistent. Quality, quality, quality. If we do not have a quality trained graduate coming out, that employer, that hiring manager isn't going to trust us the next time. So quality is critical. 50-person deep instructional design team, 900 technical courses, all broken down into competencies, each competency broken down to learning objectives. And it is curated, it is validated, and it is updated. So that quality imperative is just critical. Compellingly unique. How are we different in compelling ways, not just to be quirky? Our intake process, and maybe this isn't the college for you. Let's talk about your career goals and aspirations. Maybe you need to go to community college, knock out some academics before you enroll in this, this career program if you're not sure. Let's take you out to the wind turbine trainer. Go up to the top. How you feel? Oh man, We wanted to have a consultative process that's compellingly unique. And then industry responsive. That's the third imperative that we have. So those industry responsive. Our customer is the employer that's hiring our graduate first. If we serve that customer well, we're going to serve our students and our prospects and the taxpayer well too. But if we gear all of our products to what the quote prospect or student wants, because that's the market, that's not our market. It's not our market. Our market is the employer first. And sometimes we're selling programs that are hard to sell to the prospect. Like, what the heck is instrumentation or industrial systems or electrical power and control? And these are hard products to sell because nobody knows about them. So the customer acquisition cost can be quite high, but we have to serve those things because that's the needs of the Texas employer. Those are these underserved markets that are high demand and high pay where we really specialize.
So let's dive into these numbers then, because we've sort of talked around them. I think that one of the reasons why you're so agile and so able to make these decisions is because you're paying attention to the data. But what you just said was so, I don't know if complicated is the right word, but complex and strategic, and thinking about how you're unique and 900 different programs. There's a lot that goes into the strategy behind getting the right student to the right program. Talk to us about some of the strategies and tactics that you used in Element and what returns you got on those.
You bet. So it's 900 technical courses across
thank you.
48 different programs. What? And then 11 campuses or locations with a couple more on the way. So let me just start off with one number, and that's it's a leading indicator of enrollment, and it's application count. Okay. So our application count right now for summer and for fall is up 30%. Our fall application counts are up 30%. Let me show another really important number, and that's conversion. One of the early conversion numbers is when they click apply on the website or on some ad, how many click submit? So how many get through the application? All right. So the prior application that we had about a 75% abandonment rate. So we did all the work in marketing. We got them to the website. We got them to click apply, and 75% average bailout rate on the prior application. Wow. Why are college applications so hard? Partly because it's a filtering mechanism. I can't think of anything else. Why else would the higher education sector not demand a more usable application? Except that you wanted to make it hard as a filter. And that's true for open enrollment institutions as well that have complex applications that are hard to find on their website. I mean, the benchmark is pretty low on usability, finding the application and clicking apply. So we wanted one that was user-friendly. So since implementing Element, our conversion rate is now approaching 90%. Okay, so that means when you click apply, almost 90% of the people click submit. Now, we did remove a couple of things from the application, but not a lot. We did change the wording so that a first-generation college student wouldn't be confused, right? If your application is intimidating and you're using wording that's higher ed speak, are you a full-time or part-time? They don't know what that is. So, you really want to be friendly to that person without flooding your lead funnel. And there's the challenge. If you have too many applications come in, you're going to flood your enrollment team with unqualified leads. And that's the dance is, how do you get that right? Well, that's where BoltBot, that's where some of the AI tools really come into play and assisting with the load of answering the traditional question. One of the issues that our enrollment team really suffers from is the pain of answering the same darn question all the time.
Preach.
It's really mind draining. So if we can get rid of a big chunk of the same FAQ, they're the same questions about financial aid, about veterans benefits, about housing, about registration. If we can get rid of a certain number of those with better automated answers with BoltBot and other AI tools, the customer, the prospect, actually enjoys that more in the data. Because they don't want to feel judged by asking a question that they might feel nervous about.
Mhm.
I mean, this is intimidating. I'm applying for
Mhm.
higher education. Even in an enrollment in an institution, the prospect is nervous, but they're a lot less nervous when they're talking to an AI assistant. They don't feel judged in asking the question. And then our
My,
staff is less burdened with and drawn down with this, oh my gosh, I have to answer that same question about the FAFSA. So
yep.
you get wins on both ends of the spectrum there with the use of some of the automation.
And they can focus on finding the right student for that right course or that right campus.
Right.
I was going to ask, are you using one application for
Yes.
all of these scenarios? So you mentioned the different student type or part-time or full-time. First gen, it's one application where you're
Yes.
filtering all of these students through. That's incredible. That's exactly what we want to see.
We wanted to have one app because MVP, minimal viable product. We really
Mm.
wanted to start, and I highly encourage anybody else doing this. Yes, you can go build unlimited numbers of custom applications, but that is not where you should be spending your time. You should be spending your time on your communications plan. You should be spending your time on your journeys. You should be spending your time on your training and retrospectives, not a high degree of customization right out of the gate. You want to follow those Elon Musk algorithms, okay? Question every requirement, don't over automate too soon, okay? And we really applied those principles here. Bare minimum viable product. Start with one application. Do you need a separate one for dual enrollment? Maybe. Do you need a separate one for veterans or dependents? Sure, you could make those arguments. We'll do those after we find out the limitations of our current application. And we'll take time to do testing and evaluate, is the cost of ownership worth it? So we really, really want to keep the cost of ownership as low as possible. So we can focus, as you said, on the relationships, on the meaningful conversations, on the minimization of things and smart automation. And everything you add is one more thing you're going to have to maintain.
So true.
Oof,
You
yeah.
mentioned cost, and Brendan shared a stat, spoiler, but the cost per application or per submitted app, you gotta share these numbers.
Yeah. So we track we have a couple of metrics we use that we've invented here. One is CPA, cost per application. And this is specifically in our digital marketing spend. So we spend a few $1 million a year on digital marketing, and that's the ads, the banners, the Reddit, the Facebook, the X, the Snapchat, whatever, right? So all the Google, paid search, display, all those categories. It's a few million a year. And we can track those wonderfully. We know how much they cost, and we know when they click on it, where they came from. So it's a really nice data set that we track on a biweekly basis to monitor our spend and our cost and return. And the last segment, actually, let me pull up the most recent one here. I can show this if you want to see it.
Always.
Can I show my screen?
I want to see visuals. Even if our listeners can't see visuals, we'll describe them.
Okay. So can you see that? Yeah, sweet.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is our proprietary information. Do not share. It's fine. We don't care. Look at the bottom right, though, and what you can see is over this time period of February 26th to April 15th, our average cost per application with our digital spend was costing $424 per application. Now, that might sound high, but graduate schools can spend $10,000 on an enrollment. Pretty expensive. We're down to $125 in this last period. Okay.
Whoa.
We've seen it as low as $85, $81. And that why? Well, it's because our app conversion rate, this is running at 88% on the application conversion rate from apply to submit. Used to be 25%. The power of our advertising dollars has had a 4x, almost 4x increase since moving to Element. And that's because the application process is so much more user-friendly. Case closed, mic drop, move on.
I want you in the room when I was on campus as a social media manager running ads and saying, I can get them there, but you all have to get them to fill out the application.
Yeah.
It was such a challenge for me on my marketing team and for the admissions team to really understand that. So seeing those numbers, seeing how you make an improvement for the student, for the user experience, it makes your life easier too, but make it easy for the student. And here's the return beautifully laid out in charts, courtesy of Michael.
Can you tell when we implemented Element?
Yes.
Okay.
You all can't see this, but you can see, if you
there it
were
is.
seeing
So
this chart, you would be able to see it.
Here's month after month after month of a 22% conversion rate, 25% conversion rate, 30 right now in the March of 24, 84% conversion rate. We're not all the way through April, but already we have an 89% conversion rate in April. We're really getting close to that 90% so far.
Jeez.
So,
Wow.
I mean, look at the change. Now, the other thing is the costs. So the cost of the prior application, $500,000-$600,000 software license. Plus, I had a bunch of add-ons we had to do. Plus, the cost of ownership with the staff was pretty high. Now we're in a real SaaS, cloud-based, not bespoke, low cost of ownership for a quarter of the cost, right? So a quarter of the cost, and then a near 4x in reduction, power of our ad dollars. There's some math for a case study. Send me some more T-shirts. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, what's beautiful about it is you've gone about it the right way, right? From the business process to selecting the tool to analyzing what was of most importance, where you're going to see the most impact, not only on the bottom line, right? So obviously you're making an impact financially, but where are you making an impact? We've talked a lot about experience of the student, right? And what they go through, what they experience, and giving them something that fits the journey that they're going on and doesn't confuse them, doesn't make it difficult. That all matters, right? And if you can knock all of that out in one foul swoop with a change, of course it's worth the lift.
Yeah, that's where there's more opportunity, where we're going to be focusing in this kind of phase 2 implementation, which let me then stress again for other people considering doing this. Phase 1, MVP, get it out the door, get it integrated with the student information system, get your people trained enough. Don't do all the hyper customization out of the gate. Get it running well, and preferably in a spring or summer deployment, not your first fall. We did it in the kind of right before fall, we did in summer. Pretty really like March. Oh my gosh, right when we were in fall recruiting. We didn't have a choice, but I would recommend not doing that. Although the implementation was not particularly, it wasn't a lot of work, but it was manageable. So phase 2 is now the customer journeys and the student journey mapping, and more lead qualification. What are the questions that we need to ask, of somebody that's interested in a particular field? If the field requires a commercial driver's license, well, do you have a DUI? Let's if you're going to doing something with heights, what kind of ride do you ride at the carnival? We don't want to do interest surveys. Dear goodness, please, do you like working with your hands? Gosh, they've been around for decades, and they're not effective unless you're trying to find which sock code out of 800 is the most appropriate. No offense to the ONET and other things, but no, we know more about the likelihood of what catches people in these programs. Our faculty know, the kinds of questions that we should be asking, and providing the information to the prospect as early as we can. So what's an indicator if we're doing a better job on that? A reduction in the percentage of changing majors. Mm-hmm. That's one of our next thing that's interested. Can we reduce the number of people that change majors? Because I changed majors in higher ed. I was an engineering major, and then I was tired of the balsa wood bridges and that T85, 85 calculator. And I got involved in marketing and media and film and storytelling, much to the chagrin of my parents. I didn't even tell them I just changed majors. They found out years later. You're not an engineering student anymore? No, I went arts.
Incredible.
Surprise. So that's the next stage. Can we really get, if it's a military veteran and they're coming in, what branch are they in? Or they're a dependent? Are they transitioning? And how do we connect the loops of that person, their reality, their situation? How do we align our communications to be really empathetic to each of those people in that moment in time? How do we anticipate the issues or problems that somebody might have and bring that information forward as early as we can in that process? Save the enrollment team, save the counseling team, reduce change of majors, improve persistence. We want to bring that up. That dashboard in Element when they're waiting, that's precious real estate. How do you use that dashboard to bring forward information? And you want to be compellingly unique? We want to talk about what jobs you're interested in before you've even enrolled. Let's start talking about that. let's introduce you to some of the 10,000 employer partners or whatever that we have, and let's start connecting you with the career early and not later. Bring career services, bring the career discussion right up to the front before you've even enrolled. That's really what our phase 3 kind of plan is about, just to give that away. I mean, the more higher ed does that, the better everybody will be.
Well, it's kind of like you're reading our minds. I mean, that was exactly where we were going, is to talk about what's next for you all. And I think that just flows perfectly.
I can also chime in and say, Michael, I've had the pleasure of meeting some of your team. I met Charles, Adrian, and Hannah, I think, who are working on a personalized communications plan just like this for one of your, I think Charles called it the Super Bowl event for you all, the Skills USA event.
Yeah.
And we were talking about ways to segment what data you were collecting. Hannah was talking about A/B testing. I think your team has really leaned into this idea and is taking your lead on figuring out what information they need to gather, how best to get that message to that student in the right place. And they're doing it very well.
Thank you. You've mentioned some great people, Hannah in copywriting and Charles in product marketing and the team. And then our visual communications team, everybody's just, really aligned on that. Skills USA, for those that may not know about that, that's kind of like the Super Bowl for technical education, vocational education. And so they have high school and collegiate competitions around the country. And that's our kind of person. I mean, they're doing competitions in coding or plumbing or electrical or masonry or robotics or mechatronics. So it's across all these fields. Well, that's one of our main recruits. So we used Element to do a new promotion, and there's over $1 million in scholarships that we just did in Corpus Christi, Texas, a few weeks ago. And what we did is we created a landing page in Element, and we flashed a QR code in the jumbotron of this hockey arena full of 7,500, competitors.
That's awesome.
Mostly all high school students. And we said, everybody, graduating seniors here, you go here on this Element-powered microsite, fill out the deal, $1,000 scholarship. $1,000 scholarship. We used a QR code. We got all that lead gen information for those folks for retargeting and other purposes. And if they're a graduating senior and they come to TSTC, we're going to get a $1,000 scholarship. And then for the gold medal winners, we offered full rides.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, we offered full rides for the gold medal winners of Skills USA. And so there's a whole opportunity to get more scientific about discount strategies, which when you talk about scholarships, what you're really doing is a discount strategy. It's a coupon. Mm-hmm. And Preston Cooper, who's done some fabulous writing about the dangers of almost predatory coupon strategies that are common in higher education, where the average four-year university discounts tuition more than 50%. It's $100,000 to go here. Yeah, but except it's not. And that's messing with the U.S. News and World Report rankings. And, it's a whole lot of shenanigans going on. And he really nails the higher ed sector, Preston Cooper, in that article. Well, we want to be intentional about who is the most likely to succeed in a career. And a Skills USA gold medal winner in welding, we want them to come to our welding program at TSTC. We really do. And congratulations to them for the hard work of winning a competition. But also the person that spent time practicing, that's competing in those things, they showing grit. They're showing persistence. They're showing effort. They're showing the things that we know are going to correlate with higher persistence, a higher lifetime customer value. I mean, all right. And so now the discount strategy can be informed by that with greater intelligence than just grow, 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 grow.
This is so great because this principle, while there may not be partners out there who have Super Bowl events like this, you can use this model for any of your open house lead generation events, right? Yeah. Set up that landing page, get them in your funnel. It's just a textbook case for
pop a QR
building.
code. When people do tours around the campuses, put that QR code up there. You're interested in this program?
Yes.
Pop them to a program landing page right from that area. The embedded virtual tours and all of those kinds of components. So, phase 4, all right, here is getting really scientific around the effectiveness of these different campaigns. And you mentioned A/B testing. We're building these new visitor centers that are really career exploration centers. And our intention there is to do, more, explore these different career options, put on a VR goggles. Let's go over to this hands-on lab and let's do some welding with a haptic, VR feedback welder, or turn some metal with a CNC machine. We're trying, and then we want to capture that information in the CRM for thoughtful communications plans. Hey, maybe you're a sophomore. Okay, let's put you on a schedule for retargeting, down the road, and let's capture that lead and mature the funnel. So, and then study what's working. Who's persisting? Are they changing major?
And
And
iterate.
iterate.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love this. I feel like, so we have to ask the in your element question, but I feel like I know the answer, but I'm not going to scoop. We ask our guests to share when you feel the most in your element in the work that you do.
The people, when we have somebody's career moving forward, people that have chosen to align their personal time to work on our team and then share in the belief in our mission and for their career advancement. That, to me personally, is the best part of being a leader and a manager. Managers have a great responsibility for the culture that they create around them and their direct reports and et cetera. It affects people's children, spouses, and communities. And so I really love the sense of community that we have around here. There's a lot of diversity of backgrounds and experiences and opinions, but we're all unified by the mission, and it's not a joke. It's real. I mean, it's called, you drink the Kool-Aid around here. That's why we have such long tenured people.
Can you say that in Texas, Michael? Can you say drink the Kool-Aid? And
I don't know.
If you're not in Waco.
Yeah, we're just roadmap committed, whenever we have a conflict, there's trust, right? There's the speed of trust, to quote Stephen Covey, that we share a common belief. We have common culture on why we're here. And that makes difficult conversations less difficult. It makes decisions like element easier rather than political. Yeah, that and avoiding committees.
Yeah. Were you surprised by that answer, Brendan? I thought you were going to say something data-driven. I'm surprised, but not surprised, Michael, because you did talk about the soul, but I thought for sure it was going to be like spreadsheets and
Yeah, it changes. I mean, the data and the clarity and the output of what we do is also fulfilling, but it happens because of the people.
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me entirely. I think I hear a lot of what we've talked about in this podcast is the tools that he's using to accomplish the heart of what he just spoke about for when he's in his element, right? And that's what you see so many times. I think a lot of people in higher ed doing what they're doing have a similar heart as Michael. I think the drive, the why, the everything, it's the people, right? It's the people you work with. It's the people you're impacting. But the impact that's made through that why is, are you utilizing the tools? Are you doing it the right way? Are you approaching it the right way? And that's exactly why I'm so glad we had Michael on today, because how y'all are doing it, seriously, there's no objective way to look. This is the right way, right? You are doing it the right way. You're analyzing the data that you have. You're going about reviewing intentionally. I mean, the story here with the scholarship and even the strategy behind the quality of leads that you're going to get because of the process that's going to go into them winning that scholarship and the quality of student that's going to bring in. The level of intentionality there is something that everyone needs to examine whenever they deploy these things out, because it's not a spray and pray. It's not a, hey, let's give out all this money and get more people in here. There needs to be the intentionality with the approach, because that's where the impact happens.
What I didn't mention is, our funding model at TSTC, we're paid by the state, not on enrollment. We're paid on job placement. We don't get paid until the student gets a job, and then we measure their earnings over a 5-year period. So that makes intake very thoughtful. And that's why we changed that funding model back some 12 or 13 years ago, where we're 100% of our state appropriation that used to be contact hour based, enrollment based, is now truly outcomes based, not attainment, not graduation rate, not credentials of value. Do they get a job, and how much do they earn? That's the driver, because that's when you come to a technical college. And by the way, the vast majority of people that are entering higher education, when they're surveyed, as they have been for decades, the survey of incoming freshmen, why are you here? To get a job is at the top of that list. To study something interesting and to get a job, and here to get skills that have market relevance. They're in the top 3 for decades. Now, they toggle between what's the top winner based on a recessionary cycles, kind of, but we have accountability to that. And Element's helping us do that. It's helping us focus on getting these prospects across the complexity of the higher education intake process with greater ease, and then allowing automation to qualify the leads, and now enabling our communication plans to cultivate those with greater intentionality around the end in mind, not the beginning.
I'm so excited to see how this goes. We're going to have you back for phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. Just fair warning.
Count on it.
I want them all to go as well as phase 1 did. This has been awesome, Michael. I truly am going to copy and paste some of these quotes from the transcript and share them with people because it's perfect, this outline.
We appreciate the product. We appreciate the intentionality. We appreciate the culture that Element brings as well. Our team's been extremely complimentary. You guys have been there through the challenging moments of implementation. And we're looking forward to the Engage Summit. And out in Raleigh, I'll be out there with a large number of our team.
Oh,
so we're
beautiful.
Looking forward to some face-to-faces. Appreciate it.
Yes, we will. Absolutely. Well, thanks a lot, Michael. It's been incredible. And we'll see you in a couple months.
In Your Element is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too.
Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional.
Our shows help higher ed marketers and enrollment professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Mallory Wilsey, Artis Kadu, Maya Demishkovich, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed.
Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.